Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Michael Miller and I help buyers and investors and sellers every day. I also buy 1 to 2 properties myself each year. And today we're going to talk about the things that I wish I had known before I started getting into the game. So when I tell you about the dark side of real estate investing, it's not to scare you off. It's so that when you do invest, you do it with your eyes wide open and with a strategy that builds real, lasting wealth. Because make no mistake, real estate is still one of the most powerful tools to build wealth. You just have to use it wisely. So the first thing that I really want to talk to y'all about here is the illusion of cash flow. Personally, everybody has a different barometer, right? You have maybe $100, $400, $1,000 a month in cash flow. So after all of your mortgage is paid, this is money that's coming into the bank account. I personally don't like to invest in something that I'm going to keep unless it's making $1,000 a month. I had a client, he was making about an extra $400 a month, which is still pretty great, but that's not so great when you have a water heater explode. And then I actually had a client who not only had an issue with the water heater, but a sewer line went at the exact same time. So you've got about $8,000 worth of repairs. $400 a month doesn't actually feel so great anymore. So that's when he realized that cash flow is a buffer. It's not a paycheck. So always keep reserves. Cash flow is fragile. Treat it sort of as like a safety margin, not necessarily income. What is really cool though is if you're very smart and you keep this money for a rainy day, which you probably will have, the other good part about this is that when you go to buy another property, if you do have cash flow, the lender will qualify that in your debt to income ratio. So it helps you purchase more property, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going directly into your pocket. So that's something you definitely want to think about. The other thing that's really interesting is we have 7 doors now. We just bought our 8th. But the equity on paper looks amazing. Like we potentially have close to $700,000, $800,000 worth of equity that we built in 5 years, which I'll teach you how to do as well. But at the end of the day, all of that money is tied up in homes, right? It's not necessarily liquid for us to be able to use. So you could consider in some ways we're equity rich, cash poor. So it's strange to feel like a millionaire on paper, but still you can panic every time your phone rings, not sure what's going to come up next. There was a California couple who moved here. They owned 3 rental properties and they had like $500,000 in equity, which is pretty incredible. Then we had one tenant who missed rent and another needed a roof repair and then another tenant who stopped paying. So you have liability with every rental as well. And if you don't have money in reserves, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. So they ended up having to sell one of those properties to be able to cover their payments so they didn't have to go into their personal savings, right? They were trapped. Asset rich, but cash poor. So this happens when you chase status metrics, numbers of doors, total equity instead of financial health. So I want you to think about building liquidity before you build leverage. Real wealth is freedom. It's not just property count. And then I want you to also think, there's people who get really excited. We go to these investor meetups and people are like, heck yeah, I got money. I'm going to go buy 3 properties right away. And I've seen this happen more than one time. So they go to this big seminar and after the weekend they buy 3 properties and by the end of the year they're just bleeding cash. Scaling too fast without systems or reserves doesn't multiply opportunity. It multiplies your risk. One client of mine once said, I didn't realize I was running a small business until it was too late. So the takeaway here is that real estate rewards patience. If you want longevity, think like running like a marathoner, not like a sprinter. So here's the danger of inconsistent income. So real estate investing is not passive, it's periodic. Vacancies happen, tenants move out, and sometimes they just stop paying. One landlord told me his passive income turned into 6 months of paying someone else's mortgage while waiting for an eviction. And going back to self-managing your rentals, my partner does all the managing of the rentals. I find the investments, I go out and make the deals happen, and then he goes and manages the properties. And that was really great when we had 1 or 2. We personally try to do the midterm, which is furnished finders, so traveling nurses who are looking for 90-day stays, 6 months. What I feel like is the Airbnb is a lot of turnover. It's a lot of time and money and expenses, and sometimes it doesn't always end up making you more. And then people who go in for long leases, multiple years, they typically tend to be harder on the property. They really just like get their roots in and sometimes can tear it up more than you would if you were on the short-term game. So we've tried to find that middle ground with the midterm rentals, 60, 90, sometimes 6 months, and sometimes up to a year, which is really fantastic, but usually not longer than that. Now, as we have multiplied our doors to 7, purchasing our 8th door a couple days ago, what you don't realize is that you've just hired yourself as a property manager, a plumber, collections officer, and you get paid nothing for that. Time, stress, and burnout are the hidden costs of owning and managing all of your properties. I've had clients who have sold their entire portfolio because they couldn't handle more than the 2 units. So here's a pro tip. If you self-manage your rentals, price your time. Ask yourself, would I take this job if it paid $12 an hour? If the answer is no, hire a manager. I had a couple that came to me, they were terrified of investing. They asked me, what should I do? They'd heard the hoard stories. And so instead of chasing big numbers, we found them one solid property, townhouse, low maintenance, newer construction with an HOA. So 3 years later, they now modestly have like $1,000 in equity, and it cash flows nicely with very little maintenance and repairs because it was newer. So they were very grateful that we didn't try to go to for that fourplex the first time, but started small with a townhouse or something that was a lot more easy to manage. The equity gains are fantastic. I mean, really, when you invest in real estate, cash flow is awesome. At a certain point, and if we are in a high interest rate environment right now, if interest rates were to come down, our cash flow would go up, and we would potentially be able to take some of that money for travel and things like that. But I look at the long-term game. We have had a record low amount of real estate transactions the last 4 years, kind of similar to what we saw in 2008. And what we know about real estate is what goes down often goes back up. So holding on to real estate over the long term is really about the equity gains. At some point, could you imagine yourself having multiple millions of dollars worth in equity? Maybe you didn't get a ton of money in cash flow, especially because you were hiring a property manager, but you have millions of dollars worth of equity, you're ready to retire, the world is your oyster. That's the whole point of real estate investing. Money is great. Freedom is the real key to real estate investing. Right now, we are in an environment where mortgages are very tough because the interest rates are high, the payments are high. It's really hard to make cash flow work. When we're shopping right now, we look for at least 4 doors or more. But what's also true is interest rates may come down. And so if you can get your mortgage payment covered and you've got enough reserves to manage the rental for the next 12 to 24 months, eventually you'll be able to get those interest rates down. You'll be able to get more in cash flow. Now here's a pro tip. Your interest is tax deductible. So when you have interest on a property, which you pay most of your interest up front in your mortgage payments, take a look if you're not looking right now. You pay a small amount towards principal and then a lot goes to interest, especially in the first several years. But that interest is tax deductible. So depending on your income, owning a property and having that ability to write off can help put money back in your pocket at the end of the year with taxes. I'm going to tell you guys in another video, make sure you like and subscribe, because this next video I'm going to tell you about how I pay almost nothing in taxes legally by buying a property every year. Instead of paying the government the money that I potentially could owe them in taxes, they have rules that allow me to now put that money into real estate investing. So stay tuned for that video for sure. The moral of the story here is that real estate isn't necessarily about how many doors you own or the passive income that you get. It's hopefully about the doors that it opens in your life. I help investors and anybody who's just getting started to the game, to have the people who have several properties themselves. I help all of them build a smart strategy, because the end goal for me, ultimately, my number one core value is freedom. And I think at the end of our lives, we're not going to look back and think, God, thank God I owned like 48 rentals. We're probably going to think, God, thank God I went on those 48 European vacations and spent time with my family. And this is what real estate investing can do for you. So for some final thoughts for you, real estate investing isn't the villain, it's the vehicle. But like any powerful tool, it can build your future or break your finances, depending on how you use it. So if you are here thinking about investing in real estate, getting to that end goal of freedom, make sure you reach out. My name is Michael Miller. Thank you all so much for joining me on the channel today.